That afternoon was mildly sunny. A security camera captured a young woman, hair tied neatly, wearing a loose t-shirt, hurriedly stepping outside with a trash bag. Just a few minutes. Just enough for a nice neighbor to walk up the porch, glance around, and open the cap of a baby's milk bottle. She pulled out a mini hand sanitizer bottle from her purse, the kind often handed out at stores. Colorless, faint scent, but containing 70% alcohol. No shaky hands. No hesitation. She poured a small amount directly into the pre-mixed baby formula, a bottle a 3-month-old child drank daily. Then, calmly sealed it, placed it back exactly as it was, and walked away, as if she'd never trespassed into someone else's home. When the mother returned to feed her baby, she froze. She picked up the bottle, sniffed. A sharp, cold scent. Something that had no place in an infant's first meal. The mother screamed, trembled. The bottle dropped, milk spilled on the floor, and the baby cried. Not from hunger, but from a sudden heavy fear it couldn't comprehend. Police arrived soon after, and no one expected the first door to open next door, without denial, to be a white woman in her 60s, Linda K. Rasmussen, known for baking cookies, planting lavender, and sharing cleaning tips on Facebook. Linda simply said, "I did it because the girl left the bottle out in the sun. I didn't want the baby getting bacteria. I only added a little sanitizer, for cleanliness." No one's teaching her how to raise a child. No apology, no remorse, only a blank stare. The kind society often finds harmless when it comes from someone who looks like your mom, your aunt, or that sweet neighbor. But this time, she had targeted the granddaughter of a police lieutenant who had silently witnessed dozens of similar incidents go unpunished. This isn't just about an act, it's about a system. Do you know the first thing a junior officer said upon hearing? "She probably didn't mean it, sir. She looks so kind. Who'd suspect her? Let's just give her a warning." And at that moment, the lieutenant, a father, a man of color, knew that if he stayed silent, it would all be shelved again as a minor misunderstanding, while the offender smiled and moved on. He ordered the scene preserved, requested a full report, including the footage, ordered lab tests on the tainted milk, and pressed for criminal charges for intentional poisoning. Because had the offender been a person of color, a teenager, or an immigrant, would anyone call it an innocent mistake? Social media split in two. One side, mostly older white users, commented that Karen meant well, that bad parenting deserves correction, that Linda was probably just stressed. The other, young mothers, social activists, past victims of moral policing, called it what it was: poisoning an infant, systemic racism, and arrogance, built on the belief that the law doesn't apply to people like us. Karen, Linda, thought she'd walk free. Like so many times before, all she had to do was appear concerned, well-meaning, maybe overly worried. But this time, when the sirens blared, and the lieutenant stepped out coldly and said, "I'm not here as your neighbor. I'm here as the father of the victim," Linda began to tremble. This isn't just a story to get angry about. It's a wake-up call. How many wrongdoings have been disguised as concern? How many babies were saved only because their parents smelled something odd? And how many more Lindas believe they'll never be held accountable just because they don't look like criminals? That day, the police station was unusually crowded. Not because of the severity of the incident, a baby bottle with a hint of sanitizer, a neighbor who slipped up, but because of the identity of the infant listed in the report, the grandchild of Lieutenant Henry T. Wells, a man who had led internal investigations into more than 18 racially sensitive cases. He was a man respected and feared within the force, because he never stayed silent. And this time, he was the victim. The investigation began with what people like Linda fear the most: data. The security camera in front of the porch captured everything. Linda stepping into the property uninvited, standing before the bottle of a 3-month-old baby girl, opening the cap, pouring a clear liquid from a personal hand sanitizer bottle, replacing the cap, walking away without even a glance back. The entire act took just 46 seconds. Not an unconscious reflex, and certainly not an accident. But what chilled the investigators was not the footage. It was Linda's testimony during her first interrogation. "I did what needed to be done. I don't hate the baby. I just taught her mother a lesson. She left the bottle outside. Who knows what germs it could have had. I just helped. I used to be a nurse. I know how dangerous these things are." The problem was, Linda was never a nurse. Her employment record showed she had worked as a supermarket cashier, a call center operator, and was fired 5 years ago for insulting an Asian customer by saying, "If you can't speak English, go back to your country." Back then, the incident faded away. No one sued. She gave a half-hearted apology. Life went on. But not this time. Lieutenant Wells dug deeper. He contacted the county health department and requested an analysis of the substance poured into the bottle. The result: hand sanitizer containing 70% ethanol and fragrance additives. A hazardous dose if ingested by an infant. Not immediately fatal, but potentially causing liver damage, acute poisoning, and in some cases coma. Fortunately, the mother smelled the scent in time and stopped her baby from feeding. But what if she hadn't? No one dared imagine. The community began to divide. Those close to Linda, members of the Clean Moms Club, defended her. She didn't mean any harm. Everyone makes mistakes. People are too sensitive nowadays. But a Twitter account dug up an old post from Linda, dated 2 years ago, in which she wrote, "I gag when I see black babies sucking on bottles everywhere. Their moms probably never heard of sterilizing." The post went viral, and the hashtag Karen with poison topped trends for 3 consecutive days. The mother, Renee Wells, initially remained silent. But after 4 days, she appeared on a live stream with the family's attorney. Her voice trembled, but her eyes never left the camera. "I don't want fame. I just want to be a mother. But I was made a target. Because I'm a woman of color. Because I left a bottle on the porch. Because I lived next to someone who believes good intentions give her the right to trespass. I don't want pity. I just want the truth to be called by its name." This was intentional poisoning. And then the wave of pressure turned toward the police department. They were forced to act, not only due to public outrage, but because the lead investigator was the father of the victim. At first, Linda was held in custody for 48 hours. Her lawyer requested bail, but her old record, the resurfaced post, and psychological assessments of her moral control behavior led the judge to rule: indictment on 3 charges: unlawful trespassing, endangering the life of a child, and intentional poisoning of food. Linda was no longer the nice neighbor. She became the face of the modern Karen, those who cloak violence in morality, conceal control in politeness, and believe that kindness is a ticket to immunity. But this time, the ticket expired, and justice did not come from an institution, but from a father who had long tired of swallowing pain. The case of Linda Rasmussen quickly spilled beyond the quiet suburban neighborhood. Local press covered it. National news outlets ran headlines like, "Woman pours hand sanitizer into baby bottle. Outrage ensues." Helpful neighbor or hidden threat? Within just a week, 3 women, all former victims of Linda, contacted the Wells family attorney. They didn't know each other, didn't live near one another, but they all shared one thing: Linda had intervened in their lives. in disturbingly similar ways. The first was Sandra P., a single Latina mother who once lived 2 blocks from Linda. I used to leave my daughter's stroller by the porch, near the gate. One time I stepped inside for a bit, came back. The stroller had been moved and inside was a chili pepper. I thought it was a prank by neighborhood kids, but now I know it was a warning. Sandra filed a complaint, but no one believed her. The camera wasn't working. She moved out 3 months later because she no longer felt safe. The second was Tracy G., an African-American nurse who lived next to Linda in 2019. I received an anonymous letter saying my son was too dirty to attend school. I thought it was kids being mean. Then one day my son vomited. His milk smelled strong, like alcohol, just like Baby Wells' story. No one investigated. No evidence. No official connection. People told her to just be more careful next time. And the perpetrator got away because the victim wasn't white enough, powerful enough, or backed by anyone. The third, and most shocking, was a white woman. Her name was Melissa D., once Linda's co-worker at a call center. I used to like Linda, until I showed her a family photo with my boyfriend who's black. Linda smiled, but the next day I received an anonymous text saying I was shaming my race. It came from an unknown number, but I recognized the phrasing, the tone. I stayed silent out of fear, but now I can't anymore. The media exploded. TV channels invited psychologists to analyze. And soon, a term flooded the airwaves: moral vigilantism. Simply put, it's when someone, often a white woman, feels entitled to judge others and step in without consent. They don't punch, don't yell. They quietly reshape the world around them to be cleaner, proper, and standard. By standards they alone define. They don't see themselves as perpetrators. They think they're heroes. The consequences went beyond the individual. Parenting and child care groups demanded stricter laws against unauthorized interference with child rearing, even if no visible harm was done. Many immigrant communities began sharing their own stories of overreaching neighbors, from cooking habits to clothing choices to parenting. Lieutenant Wells, still the lead investigator, received hundreds of emails. Thanks, apologies, cries for help. One was from an Arab father. My daughter once had salt put in her milk by a neighbor who said it was to teach her to drink properly. When I complained, they laughed and called it a harmless joke. I never told anyone until I saw your son almost die. Evil doesn't always have claws. Sometimes it has a smile. Linda became a symbol. Not because she was rare, but because she perfectly embodied a widespread crime that had never been called by its true name. A young journalist tweeted, "Karen's crime isn't that she hates you. It's that she thinks she's helping by destroying you." Linda was denied bail. Her preliminary hearing was scheduled within 14 days. The public remained split. Some were furious. Others still made excuses. But one thing had changed forever. Silence was no longer an option. Because this time it almost killed a child. Refuses to stay silent. The courtroom was packed. Not because of Linda. She had no family with her. Only a public defender. Not because of the media. They stood outside, blocked by police barriers. But because people came to witness, for the first time, a Karen facing justice like any other criminal. She sat at the defendant's bench, thinner, grayer, her eyes vacant as if she couldn't grasp what was happening. But anyone who had seen the video of her pouring sanitizer into the baby bottle knew it wasn't unconscious. The prosecutor opened with a line no one would forget. "This is not a trial of a woman who hates children. It is a trial about the right to violate, masked by a smile. It is a trial about privilege, disguised as good intentions. And it is a trial of society, asking itself, do we still treat kindness as a license to do harm? Cross-examination unfolded in tense silence. Linda pled not guilty. Her lawyer offered 3 main defenses. There was no proof the amount of sanitizer posed real danger. There was no intent to harm, just misguided concern. She had no criminal record. She was a model citizen. The courtroom held its breath until Renee, the baby's mother, took the stand. She didn't cry, didn't shake. She brought a baby bottle identical to the one from that day and placed it in front of the jury. She said, "I'm not here for an apology. I'm here to speak to every mother who's been judged for raising their child differently. I'm here to remind you, you are not wrong just because you're not white, not rich, or don't speak like them. Wrong is when someone thinks they can correct you by harming your child." The jury took just 47 minutes to deliver a verdict. Guilty on 3 counts: trespassing, intentional endangerment of a minor, tampering with food using a toxic substance. Linda said nothing as the judge announced her sentence: 5 years in prison, no probation. But she turned toward the jury, all white, and looked stunned. Because perhaps she still believed she would be spared, like all the times before, just because she looked harmless. The community did not celebrate. They mobilized. 3 other states began drafting new laws categorizing interference with child care as a criminal offense, even if no visible injury occurred. Parenting and child care organizations called for ethical guidelines for residential communities, where respecting privacy became non-negotiable. The hashtag #JusticeForTheBottle spread nationwide. But it wasn't about a bottle. It was about a belief that small acts, if unnamed, will rot society from within. And the most important truth: Karen is no longer a meme. Karen is a system, a culture, a privilege. And now, Karen must be held accountable. 1 month after the trial, Lieutenant Wells, father, grandfather, officer, hosted a community forum titled, "No One Has the Right to Touch My Child's Bottle." Hundreds showed up, not to rage, but to learn, to understand that safety doesn't come from watching each other, but from respecting boundaries, respecting differences, respecting the right to exist in peace. Justice is not when the bad guy is punished. Justice is when good people stop being afraid to speak up. Wells. And what about you? Have you ever stayed silent when someone was wronged? Because maybe they didn't mean it? Have you ever witnessed a real-life Karen and said nothing? Or perhaps you once thought you were helping others by controlling them. This story doesn't end in a jail cell. It only ends when we stop excusing evil wrapped in good intentions. If you see yourself in this story, share it. If you've been Renee, speak up. If you've been Karen, reflect. Because no one has the right to put hand sanitizer in someone else's baby bottle, even if they think it's for their own good.